Salutations, crustaceans. I'm Lobster, and today we're going to be having a look at the new MTD LK5 Kingston from MTD Bases. This is the Kingston model of the Lynn Keller signature base. This is a 32-inch medium-scale base that's geared more towards smaller players, based on the small body. I am a rather tall person, and this definitely is not my first choice for body size, as it makes it difficult for me personally to get up here on the upper frets. But for somebody with a smaller frame, who maybe doesn't want to reach so far for the first fret, and wants tighter string spacing and a smaller body that still balances well, I think this might be up your alley, potentially. We'll go over the pros and cons of this particular model shortly. But first, big thank you to MTD for sending me this base, as well as a modified version with Bartolini pickups. And now let's talk about the specs of the MTD LK5. MTD LK5 features a basswood body with 3 available finishes. You have the Blue Burst here, as well as the Candy Apple Red, which I just showed you in the modified version. And then there is a metallic green, teal kind of thing going on. It's a finish for sure. I'm personally not a huge fan of the finish variety that they have on these bases. I think they could have gone with some different colors that would have maybe been a little bit more appealing, but overall visually these aren't bad looking bases. You get the classic MTD shape, though it's shrunk down quite a bit. You have the truss rod adjustment here at the neck, though it's under a plastic plate. You have a very interesting preamp here with a volume control, a blend control, a passive tone control that's available while the preamp is bypassed as well as when it's engaged, and a 3-band preamp with a mid control and a stacked bass and treble control. You also have a little switch here to bypass the preamp. For hardware, we have, I don't know what type of bridge this is, but it is 16.5mm spacing, much narrower than what you get on other MTD 5-string basses, which are usually 19mm. So this is again geared towards a smaller player and someone who doesn't want to reach as far for the strings. You have a 5-string PJ setup that's geared for the tight string spacing here. This is a single coil in the bridge position, and we have a regular split coil P pickup here as well. Moving on to the neck, we have a 32-inch scale 24-fret neck, and it has a 44mm nut width, a relatively comfortable shape, and I believe it's like a compound radius. It's relatively flat overall. As I mentioned, we have a truss rod adjustment here at the heel of the neck, though it is covered by a plastic plate with 2 screws. And we have a 0 fret up here at the top of the headstock, which is something you usually don't see on basses at this particular price point. I'll talk about the price in a little bit. But up at the headstock, we have hip-shot tuners. That's right, hip-shot standard from the factory, like most other MTD Kingston basses, I believe. And this model is also the first Kingston model to have the regular MTD headstock. Most other Kingston models have like a 4x1 setup for the 5 strings and have a different headstock shape overall, but this is the same headstock shape that you get in the USA MTDs, or at least very similar. Though the tuners look a bit odd on it because the headstock is shrunken down quite a bit to match the shrunken down body here. And around back we have no string through, so it's just string through the bridge only. We have a battery compartment here, no battery door unfortunately. This is just a battery plate with 2 screws, that's plastic. And we also have a control cavity here. There is an offset 4-screw neck attachment with an angled neck heel, and a what looks to be 1-piece maple neck with a scarf joint. There's no skunk stripe or anything. The neck finish is satin all around, and a satin finish on the fingerboard. Very nice feeling neck. The fretwork seems to be okay feeling from the edges. However, fretwork when we're playing can be a little questionable in some areas. And on the back of the headstock, we can see that this bass, like other MTD Kingstons, are made in China. So MTD has their import line, which is made in China, and then their USA bases are produced in Kingston, New York. And how much does the MTD Kingston Lynn Keller signature bass cost? The 5-string model comes in at $1,100, and the 4-string model comes in at $1,000. Now let's go ahead and play our stock MTD LK5 just a little bit. I'm going to have the volume up all the way, the preamp engaged but centered, and both pickups engaged. So that is the MTD LK5 with both pickups engaged. Honestly, the pickups are a little bit on the weak side, which is unfortunate because there aren't many medium scale 5-string basses that are geared towards smaller players. So with both pickups engaged, it is a good PJ sound, and you can definitely compensate for the lack of volume here with a compressor, which I have, and it's not turned up all the way. I can definitely turn up the input volume to compensate for this lack of output, but the fact that I'm using multiple basses from different manufacturers, it allows me to highlight the output differences when you're looking at them side to side. But here's our Lynn Keller 5 with the P-bass pickup soloed. Not a bad P-bass tone, but again, just a little weak on the output side. So here's a little side-to-side with a Yamaha BB735 with the preamp bypassed. Not just centered, but bypassed and the tone control all the way open. This will have the preamp engaged, so it'll even have a little bit of an output boost. And now let's move over to the bridge pickup here, which is a single coil jazz bass pickup. Here's what that sounds like with the tone all the way open. Oh, I haven't even talked about the tone control yet. We'll get to that. So that is our bridge pickup here. This is a single coil bridge pickup, and I'm kind of disappointed with the output of that bridge pickup. But that's why we have a preamp here that can maybe boost that a little bit. So let's center our pickups and let's boost our bass control and boost our mid about 50%. So yeah, that sounds a bit better with the preamp boosting some things. However, the fact that at center it's kind of a bit of a dud tonally is kind of disappointing. The preamp does a nice job of boosting at least the key frequencies. With the bass boost engaged and the mid boost engaged, you definitely get some life out of the instrument, but compared to other instruments of the same pickup configuration, the output is a bit on the weak side, which is disappointing. Another thing that's disappointing about the electronics, unfortunately, is the passive tone control, where it is basically an on and off switch. So let's just demonstrate that very quickly. It's basically that last like 5% which dictates whether or not the pot is engaged or not. And I believe that's because the pot is probably incorrectly spec'd as a linear pot instead of an audio taper pot. So that's kind of a bummer as well. However, on the upgraded version with the Bartolini pickups, though that has an upcharge, that has a perfectly functional tone control, where this, again, really is a bit of an on and off switch. So with the P pickup engaged and the preamp boosting things and the tone all the way down, here's what that sounds like real quick. So an unfortunate aspect about this is that when you have the preamp centered, I feel like you kind of notice the fretwork a bit more because you're digging in, trying to get more oomph out of the bass. So again, here's the preamp centered, tone control all the way open, and the blend control centered. So that's just playing with regular oomph. But because that's such low output, instinctively I want to dig in more, and that results in it becomes very buzzy. And when you're playing this with like proper levels, you don't really encounter that as much because you're not trying to get something out of this. Now let's go ahead and listen to our MTD Kingston Lynn Keller 5 and the modified one back to back with a backing track as well. Enjoy! And we're back. Here are my final thoughts on the MTD Lynn Keller 5-string bass, or just the Lynn Keller Kingston model in general. There aren't a lot of basses that are geared towards smaller players that have a small body and small neck, tight string spacing, that are specifically made for a smaller player. So this is definitely one of the few that's out there. However, I feel like some of the setbacks on the electronics make this kind of a disappointment. The feel of the bass overall is pretty nice, however the fretwork in some areas isn't the best. And when you're digging in, because of the low output that you're getting, you might get a lot of fret buzz and noise. However, once you use the preamp and get the levels sorted out, it's a pretty good bass to play if you're into tighter string spacing. It has solid tone, minus the output issue. I mean, the pickups don't sound bad, they just sound a bit weak. You have nice hardware here, but for the $1,100 price tag, and it doesn't even come with a case, I think this is a big ask, and I think that there's a lot of other basses out there right now at this particular price point, or even less, that offer a lot of the same features, minus the medium scale-ness, for a lot less money. So that's kind of a bummer. I'm generally a fan of MTD Kingston basses because they are very player-focused and player-oriented, and I think this is no different. However, they really need to sort out the electronics here because this definitely feels a bit half-baked. Having the tone control be how it is, having the pickups be as weak as they are, and basically requiring you to crank the preamp in order to get any sort of usable levels is kind of a disappointment because you really expect more out of an MTD, and you expect more out of an MTD Kingston even. But those are my thoughts on the MTD Lynn Keller 5-string bass. Let me know what you think about this bass in the comments below, and thank you MTD for letting me borrow this bass as well as the modified one. I really appreciate it. And as always, until we groove again,